welcome, welcome. I've got an event I'm going to this weekend, and I really wanted to make a little tunic. It's just perfect for where I'm going. So I'm in my sewing room, and I've made up the top, and this is just sweater set. It's pattern number 195, and all I did was add length. The reason I added length was number one, I want to wear it with leggings, and number two, I'm going to add a casing onto this, and this is what I'm going to show you today. Has how to make a casing. The only other change I made, I added my length. I added 5.5 inches. This particular fabric, the border runs along the selvage, so I don't even have to hem it because the border, it's all finished. It's really pretty. So clearly the top is really quick. Even the sleeves, what I did is I put the border at the bottom, and if you notice, the sleeves tie right into the bottom, because by the time you do a tunic should end right where you cup your hand. Right where you naturally cup your hand, when your hands are by the side of you, your tunic should end right there. So I added to where my tunic would be right there, and then I put the border print on the bottom of the sleeves also, so you can see that the sleeve border and the garment border are together. The only other thing I wanted to change is that I added a little slit at the sides. And that's fun just because to me it gives a little more casual feel, which is what I wanted. And I saw a tunic and it was with leggings, and I really liked that look. So the other thing I want to do is I'm going to add the casing. And you could just always, whenever you sew, I'm using my 2-inch wide elastic, and I'm just cutting this 1/4 inch wide. There's like little grooves all through the elastic, and you can just pick any of these grooves and just continue in. Whenever you do like elastic at the waist, you do have the option of just sewing the elastic right to the garment. I just don't like that. For some reason, I just feel like I like a casing better. I think it gives me more control as to where I want the gathers. When I put gathers on my body, I don't really want them at the sides of me. I feel a little bit wide already, so I like to have the gathers more in the front and in the back, per se. So I've cut a piece of elastic, and I'm going to put that elastic around me. And don't make it too tight. It doesn't need to be tight. It just needs to be, your amount of your waist. Anytime you get it too tight, it starts feeling, just too tight, which is not a comfortable feeling. So put it around. And also what I wanted with this is I wanted it to have a little blousing. And the reason I wanted it to have the blousing is it's a little bit of slimmer look. That blouson, it was from the 60s, and when the top blouses over the bottom, you look a little bit thinner. So that's what I wanted. So get it the way you want it, look in the mirror, get it how you want it, and then you're going to just mark 4 points, and you're going to mark at the bottom of the elastic. So I'm just going to put a pin in the front, a pin on each side. When you take it off, you'll equalize and make sure the sides are the same. I won't equalize the back. I'm going to leave the back exactly where it is. And the front and the back will probably be different because none of us are straight across, from front to back. None of us are. And sometimes when I do it, I like a little more blousing in the back than I do in the front, or vice versa. On the back one, I know you can't see it, but you can just feel the bottom of the elastic and just put the pin right where it is. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I've got my blouson. I like the way it looks. I'm going to take it off. What I use for my casing on the inside, and again, you could quarter it and do the elastic right to the garment. But then if there's any mistake, I don't know. This is just easier to me. This is why I do it this way. I use my fold over elastic. It's readily available. It's a knit. I like sewing a knit to a knit. Sometimes when you use like a bias tape and it's on a knit, then you're sewing a woven to a knit, and the woven has a tendency to kind of not drape like the knit does. So I just use the fold over elastic. I leave it flat. And I'm just going to put it on the inside. Cut this to be the same size as the top. Don't make it any smaller. Don't stretch the fold over elastic. You want to make it the same size as the top. So I'm going to put it from pin to pin. I'm going to sew a straight stitch on both sides of the casing. So I go here, 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 and then I'm just going to thread my elastic all the way through it, pull the elastic out, stitch it, and then let it go. So I'm ready. I'm going to do all that sewing, and then I'll come back and show you what the end results were. And it's just the easiest way to add a casing inside of, like I've said so many times, make a little tank dress and do elastic at the waist, or put a belt. It's a little bit better than a belt because it does give you blousing and it does give you a little more control. I'm going to put a belt over this, but it still is nice that when I take the belt off, the belt doesn't have to do any work. So anytime you're doing a tank dress, a sweater dress, any of those things, It's really, or even tunic, obviously not the dress, but the tunic, it's great to add this casing in. All right, so we've got our casing in place. I went ahead and sewed on both sides of that fold over elastic and just lap it. Leave one end over the other. You don't have to close it up. The elastic's not going to go anywhere. I've taken my elastic, I've put a little pin on there, and it just doesn't take very long. I'm just going to loop it all the way through. And then once I get to the end, I'm just going to make sure that my pin can come back up, and even if I've crossed it a little bit too far and it's not, I can just make a little hole in it because I'm ready for it to come back up. Don't cut your top. And sometimes if you, I lap this a little bit too far. Sometimes if you don't lap it too far, you don't even have to do this. But just go ahead and pull it out. As I went ahead and as I was doing this all the way around, I made sure not to twist my elastic, because if you're not careful, then you got to go back. But if you're careful as you go, you don't have to. Then all I have to do is overlap those two ends. I already know because I cut it to the right length, and I'm just going to stitch it on the sewing machine. And it doesn't matter how you fasten it. Then I'm going to just pull it now all the way around to where it's smooth. And don't bother to tack that down, it's not necessary. I just want to pull that until it's got equal elastic all the way around. That's what I like. I like it to be equal. And then sometimes when I put it on, I can adjust again. All right, let's go wear it. Okay, here we are. We're all done. I went ahead and put a belt on it, but I really just like determining how much blousing I want. I'm going to take the belt off just so that you can see without. It doesn't need a belt, but it gives that belt effect. And it hides tummies great. So you don't have to do it above your tummy, you can do it right through your tummy. It still will give the illusion that anything below the blousing is thinner than the blousing. And so that's why it's such a positive look. And you can see that you can control the blousing, how much you want it, where you want it, and it's just a really simple couple steps. So happy sewing from Silhouette Patterns.